What my audience feedback has let me find out about my trailer and what I've learnt from it is that I've definitely got the correct audience for a horror movie and for my trailer. It is definitely young adults and elder teenagers. I found this out because they were the people who generally tended to show an interest in my movie, and they all generally gave it positive feedback. What my audience said about the feel of my trailer and my poster and my magazine front cover was all very similar as well. And that let me find out that they're kind of like horror films, which had that creepy feel, kind of scared them a little bit, but it kept them intrigued so that they'd want to go and watch it in the cinema. And I managed to capture that. I also learnt that I definitely got my trailer into the horror genre, and I did stick to all the conventions, but I also learned I kind of failed to challenge the conventions, which is what I set out at the beginning to do. Some people did say though that they thought it was more of a thriller than a horror, maybe a mix of both, because they found that it kind of left them thinking too much for it to be a horror. They wanted to know what happened to the girl, how it happened, so they thought maybe that had kind of a thriller aspect to it. The music was quite controversial. It was kind of 50-50, and I learnt that perhaps I needed the music to be a little less kind of piano eerie and more dark sounds, maybe some string music, violins, more drones, to make it more of a horror kind of theme music. But quite a few people liked it and said that they thought it did add to the eeriness of it. So I don't know, maybe that's kind of challenging the horror trailer conventions a bit. People liked the sound effects. I learnt that they are typical sound effects for a horror, and that people kind of expected it, but they also found it added to the scariness. They said that without it, it wouldn't have been as good. My editing, I learnt that some scenes weren't necessarily needed, and that maybe I should have, instead of having all the happy scenes at the beginning and then all the horror scenes at the end, maybe I should have mixed them in between, just to kind of not tell the story so much in order, because some people found that I was telling the story too much in order, and I did tell a bit too much of the story. I also found out the general reason why people go to watch horrors is because they like the thrill of being scared, which is what I wanted to show in my trailer, and I think I successfully did, because quite a few people said that it creeped them out and they found it scary. The interesting characters, they thought that perhaps my male character wasn't interesting enough and I should have shown him more in my trailer. So I've learned that maybe next time I shouldn't focus so much on one character and focus on both. I also learned that horrors don't generally have they don't need to have special effects. Like the Blair Witch Project, it was all filmed on a handheld camera, and I was worried that perhaps my horror didn't have many special effects, but when asked my audience, they said that horrors don't need special effects. It's quite a simple story, so to kind of drown it in special effects would just be too much. People said that. One of the things I was worried about when I was filming my trailer was that I did have a lack of characters, and after doing my audience feedback, I learnt that you don't need lots of characters for it to be a good film. Quite a lot of people said they were still interested in watching it even though it did have so few characters. They said that it kind of let them relate to the characters more on a more personal level, so they could kind of get more into the story and relate to the characters and sympathise for the main character, quite a lot of people said, which was useful for me to know.